Last time we left in the middle of a story. Vera seems to be in love with Kirsanov, yet Vera is married to Lupakov. Lupakov has begun to understand this, and he invites Kirsanov into his home. Kirsanov had been trying to respect their marriage. How would this be resolved? The resolution is reached through Lupakov's resignation as Vera's husband. This process is underway before Section 24, but that is where it really begins to show. Vera is falling in love with Kirsanov against her own will. Lupakov recognizes it and tries to help her recognize it. He wants what is best for her. He does not want to possess her. He is a man without jealousy. He says the following to her. Do you remember when we talked for the first time about what it meant to love someone? It means to delight in what's good for the other person, to take pleasure in doing everything that makes the other person happy. Isn't that so? What's best for you will also give me pleasure, but you must decide what's best for you. Why be so distressed about it? If you're all right, then I will be too. In the next section, Lupakov raises the possibility of opening up their marriage or the household to others. One large household, he says, is more advantageous than several small ones, isn't it? It would be like to apply that rule to our household. If we began to live with someone, then the two of us, as well as those who lived with us, would begin to save almost half our expenses. This is just a theoretical point for Lupakov. Vera seems upset at it. While Lupakov put this in terms of economic advantage, Vera understands it as patronizing attempt to bring Kirsanov into the household. Lupakov keeps insisting that love is desiring the good of another. Love is when a person rejoices in the joy of another. Love is wanting what is best for the other. Lupakov comes to this conclusion so much that Vera does not know her own interest, he thinks. She loves Kirsanov, and she finally intimates that to Lupakov in Section 26. So Lupakov comes up with a plan. He plays that he is unhappy and feels stuck in his way of life. He needs to shake the dust of Petersburg from his boots and see the rest of Russia. He says that he is sick of giving lessons. He is annoyed with the families of his pupils. He feels fed up with the work he is doing in the factory office. He does not feel that he is achieving lofty goals because many of the lowest hanging fruits has already been picked. The workers are no longer illiterate, and they are ruining fewer machines as a result. They are morally virtuous, and absentee and drunkenness have vanished as a result. He needed a break. And the fact that he hadn't seen his parents for the last 5 years made it possible to take a break. He leaves to go visit his parents. His last words to Vera are these. Affection for a person means desiring his happiness, as you and I know full well. Furthermore, there's no happiness without freedom. You didn't want to restrain me, nor are you. If you ever felt restrained by me, you would hurt me. Don't do that. Do only what's best for you. Then we'll see. Lupakov leaves. We then get the flashback scene in Section 28, a short section, to the suicide that seems staged at the beginning of the novel. A gunshot is heard in Moscow near a bridge, and on the ground is a cap with a shot through the band of it. The progressives end up being right. The whole suicide was staged. The conservatives are all wrong for an unwillingness to see all the evidence. It is at this point that the revolutionary leader Rakhmetov enters the book. He had been a friend of Lupakov, and he brings Vera notice that Lupakov has left the scene, as he says. Did that mean death, or just going away to a different place? It ends up meaning the latter. Rakhmetov tells Vera of the staged suicide in a long conversation with her in Section 30. Rakhmetov hands Vera a note written by Lupakov himself, in which Lupakov explains why he has staged the suicide, so that she could now go to the man she now loved, Kirsanov. Rakhmetov then confronts Vera on several levels. Why did it come to this? What was wrong with Vera so that her lover had to stage his suicide in order to free her from him? The suicide was for her good, after all, not his. She needed space to move on and permission to do so. Through making these arguments, Rakhmetov becomes the agent of Vera becoming an even more developed person. We are not going to dwell on Rakhmetov right now, but rather on Vera and how she rose to a higher level. This will allow us to see what Chernyshevsky's vision for a more perfect human being is. What were Vera's mistakes? First, Vera had handed over leadership of the dressmaking establishment to another lady, while she dealt with her personal grief issues. Rakhmetov chastises her for this. I'll bet 10 to 1 that there's really no one to replace you, and that your departure would destroy the whole enterprise. Is that fair? You'd be subjecting the well-being of some 50 people to an almost certain inevitable ruin. And for what? For some small personal convenience? When Vera went into mourning, the business went to pot. And all of this happened because she insisted on the importance of her previous relationship, and she did not want to acknowledge that she had grown apart from Lupakov. Moreover, the failure of this cooperative enterprise could have harmed the cause of all mankind and betrayed the whole idea of progress. If this enterprise fails, so might the very idea of worker cooperatives. She should have sucked it up for the sake of the cause. Vera, he says, has committed a sin against the Holy Spirit of progress. Why had Vera committed this sin? Answering this question takes us to the next level. Vera had imagined that she was attached to her husband for life. Normally, the idea of enduring marriage leads to what Rakhmetov calls the hostility between husband and wife. When that happens, marriage turns into one of those domestic hells we have the chance to admire in such a large majority of couples. Hostility did not arise in the case of Vera and Lupakov. They had developed beyond such hostility. Theirs was an advanced kind of growing apart, as modern people do in these complex times. Their dissatisfaction took a form that decent people have. It developed into its mildest, gentlest, least offensive form: love for another person. The main point is your dissatisfaction with your previous position. The reason for that dissatisfaction was the incompatibility of your two natures. You're both good people, but when your character matured, Vera Pavlovna, when you lost your childish indecisiveness and acquired definite traits, it turned out that you and Dmitry Sergeyevich were not well suited to each other. In such circumstances, more developed people would just allow themselves to grow apart and switch mates without any hard feelings. No one should be jealous of what they might lose. Jealousy is inconsistent with a developed person. Again, Rakhmetov. Jealousy is a distorted emotion, a false feeling, a despicable one, and the outcome of the sort of thing that would make me refuse to let anyone use my cigar holder. Remember, jealousy is the fear of losing something you have. Vera feared losing her attachment to Lupakov. She feared that he would be disappointed if she went to another man. He may have feared to lose her because he was attached to her. Rakhmetov claims that there is no moral worth in jealousy. Taken to its logical conclusion, this would mean that all people in love affairs should just let the other go if the other thinks it is in his or her best interest. A permanent community formed on habits presupposes a certain kind of jealousy. Rakhmetov claims that Vera must get over such jealousy for the sake of the economic enterprise she is engaged in and for the sake of being a more virtuous person. When Vera says that Rakhmetov is advocating total immorality, he just responds that such jealousy is incompatible with love and causes unnecessary melodrama and tragedy. Instead, love must be a very calm attitude. Easy come, easy go. Actually, I must go further. Vera was attached to Lupakov, and she writes in a letter that appears in Chapter 4, Section 2, that very attachment was the problem. Vera had found herself in a situation of dependence on his free will. Her position became painful, so painful that it was necessary for Lupakov to stage his suicide in order to free her from his will. Vera's jealousy is only half the problem. My position was based, as she says, on his free will. I wasn't independent. I don't wish to depend on anyone's will, no matter whose, even a person devoted to me, one I respect highly, one I trust as I do myself, one who, I am certain, would always do what I required, one who values my happiness no less than I do. Things like having someone devoted to you, or who would trust you, or who values your happiness together, all these things are bad because they compromise one's independence. So Vera sets up the standard for which a new relationship must be. It must be pure. In the past, love had implied a dependence. Each lover would depend on the other and trust the other. Each lover would want to hold on to what they had and would view things that could disrupt their relation with hostility, grounded in jealousy. As George and Tammy once sang, "We're going to hold on." Love, jealousy, and dependence seem to go together on the old view. Rakhmetov is pointing Vera to a new possibility, a love without jealousy based on individual independence. Hang on loosely. Lovers would not necessarily share rooms, just as Vera and Lupakov did not share a room. This pointed the way to their independence, but neither went far enough. Lupakov recognized it, and he staged his suicide to free Vera from him. Rakhmetov recognized it, and he admires Lupakov's judgment, if not his foresight. After the visit with Rakhmetov, Vera recognizes it, and she turns to this new way. We will see how Vera's second marriage, based on this new love, plays out in the rest of the novel. In the rest of the novel, we see Vera and Kirsanov live their common life, such as it is. Before we get to that, though, we need to go back and spend some time dwelling on Rakhmetov, the most famous, if not the most important character in the book. Rakhmetov is, after all, the epitome of the revolutionary. He marks a different kind of human perfection, it seems, one where love isn't so much a consideration at all. Let us turn to Rakhmetov in the next video.